If I can save just one person's life, especially in surveying when you're close to traffic by using these. And right now we can't fly over anybody that's outside, but you can fly off to the side and get things done. But if I don't have to have a guy out there on the ground close to traffic and I can save a life, I think that's a huge value.
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello, everyone. This is Randy Goers, and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 125. Can drones provide value to state and local transportation departments? That's the question we'll explore in today's show. Paul Wheeler is part of the technology advancement team at the Utah Department of Transportation. There he has served in many roles, including the Lead UAS Coordinator, Survey Technology Advisor, Lead of the 3D Visualization Group, Cadd Support Specialist, and Construction Surveyor. He is an instrument-rated private pilot and has helped multiple flight schools develop interactive training for their programs and is working to fully implement the UAS program within the Utah Department of Transportation. In this edition of the Drone Radio Show, Paul talks about the efforts and the results of using drones to support the mission of a public transportation agency. The Commercial UAV Expo will be held in Las Vegas from October 24th to the 26th, so make plans to attend now. Paul will be speaking at this event, and he'll tell us about that later in this interview. Go to expouav.com for details and to register for this exciting event. Now let's learn how drones can support the work of state and local transportation departments with Paul Wheeler. Let's pick up the interview where I asked Paul to introduce himself.
My name is Paul Wheeler, and I'm the Lead UAS Coordinator for the Utah Department of Transportation, and I'm also the Technology Advancement Specialist there.
How long have you been with the Transportation Department?
So I've actually been here 20 years, a little while, and it's been a great, fun job. So they're always trying to innovate here, and it's been great, and that's kind of why they put me in this position, was to help innovate and improve the ways that the department's doing business, kind of to help increase our productivity and then also complete projects faster and safer and better quality with less money, and how all that goes. So,
yeah, there's a big need for that. Anytime you talk about government, people want to know how to make it more efficient and still do a great job.
Yeah, exactly, because we want to try and save people's taxpayer money. We try to do the best we can with the taxes we have and let people know what we're doing with the money too. We're very transparent here.
So when did drones start showing up on your radar screen at the department?
You know, we've actually been looking at them for a little while. It wasn't until last year, about July, that we purchased them and started getting into them. So we looked at what's been going on throughout the country, what they're being used for, and trying to see how we could use them in our department, to see how we could try and do different things with them and where they'd work, where they wouldn't, where it makes sense. And that's kind of where it went from there.
Were there any specific things that you wanted to test when you purchased the drones?
The key points that really stuck out to us was using them for bridge inspections and then also using them for land surveying. And we're looking at accident reconstructions and accident surveying, doing traffic monitoring. So a whole bunch of areas that we thought it might be useful in, and that we've been using other stuff in the past for, and we've seen what they could do, and the photogrammetry was lower and better. So it's like, hey, well, can we use these? What's going to be their points? Is it worth doing it for the cost? So we ended up purchasing 3 different drones at that time.
All the same models?
They were different. We got basically some different tiers. 2 were similar. One was the DJI Phantom 4, and we got a 3DR Solo. And then we also got a SenseFly Albert, so it was quite a bit more expensive than those.
Was that because you wanted to evaluate the different platforms, or because you saw different types of missions for each?
Yeah, different type of missions, and then also to see what the strengths was for the price points and kind of what they could do. So, for instance, on the 3DR Solo, tethering was a big thing we were looking at, because we're saying, if we're going to traffic monitoring and we're only limited to a 20-minute battery, this one has the capability to do tethering, so we could keep it up in the air longer. Whether now that we've done some more of that, I don't know that it's necessarily necessary to actually have it up there for longer than 20 minutes, because you can just switch batteries and go up and look at it again. That was some of the things we were looking at. The SenseFly Albers had the thermal on it. It had some other key categories for doing some bridge inspections, such as the camera to actually look up, had a flash on it. But we've seen some limitations with that one as well.
How difficult was it for a public agency like yours to create this program? Did you have to go through a lengthy approval process?
Yeah, we did a little bit to, obviously, you know how it works within the state government. We need to justify everything, and then we obviously had to get 3 bids or do sole sources to actually get those purchased. But we were in the works right then of also getting our policies and procedures put out. I'm actually a single-engine land instrument-rated pilot as well, so it's a little easier for me to get my UAS license. And since I've already done all the tests, I just had to do an online thing. So that helped as well. And I'd been looking at this before we even purchased them to get things going and use it within the department. But shortly after that, we actually got our policies approved through our technical committee and got the program up and running fairly well now.
Who flies the drones?
So I am right now, and we also have some consultants that are flying for us as well. And a lot of the contractors now have got on board and have purchased their own drones too.
I understand they've been in service for about a year. How have they been used, and what have you learned so far?
One of the main areas that we're doing is land surveying right now, and we're finding they're a great tool for actually using to survey with the photogrammetry because we can get a lower altitude, we can get a better product and get denser point cloud out of them. And it's great to supplement some of our other surveying methods, whether it's to supplement with, we use LiDAR quite a bit on our stuff, also GPS, total station. So it's not an end-all tool we're finding because your accuracy is not quite as good as some of the other ones. I mean, you're getting about a tenth. But that being said, if you're using it for some of our softer surfaces that we don't need that type of quality, I think we're actually getting probably a better surface than what I could have a guy in the field do with a rod, especially in the steep terrain or areas that are difficult to get to. It's much easier to fly it, and we get a better surface.
I assume there's a time saving using the drones versus people.
Yeah, it sure is. We're saving a lot of time. We just got done flying a fairly large job, and for a guy to survey that, I honestly probably think it'd take him 3 weeks to a month, and we flew it all in about a week.
That's great. What else in addition to surveying?
So bridge inspections, we've been using it for a few different areas in bridge inspections. One is the inspection themselves, looking and trying to see the condition of the bridges. And then we actually have a document. Right now, we had our guys going out there in crane trucks. But the problem on some of those is some of the bridges we have aren't able to hold the weight of that. So they'd actually have to hire climbers to get down there and do the visual inspection. So for that, it was great. Some of our other ones, it's good too. And if a guy's out there in the field and he sees something, he's got a camera, he could take a picture. But if we're using the UAS, it's easy to have a full documentation video and pictures of the entire thing. We're trying to work with FHWA to actually use this as a tool so it's accepted on some of those critical structures, because it's right now the requirement says they basically have to be within an arm's length to inspect it. So we're seeing what we can do if we have a nice 4K video of that or a picture. So we're trying to work around some of it. We're kind of ahead of the curve of some of the other industry, and it's a slow-moving ship.
How do the images taken with the drone compare to the method traditionally used?
So the images are great, and really it depends on the type of camera our inspectors are using as well. But their limitation too is to get down underneath it, they've got to be in that truck. So there's some limitations there to get underneath those unless they can crawl under. So I think we have a little bit more maneuverability in some ways with a UAS. However, there are some areas that are a little difficult to get into, and winds have been a problem. So for instance, with the SenseFly Albris, it doesn't do very well in over 15 knots of wind. So that can be troubling in some of our areas where we have good canyon winds. But we have found the cheaper DJI Phantom 4 does really good on the winds, but it doesn't look up. So you kind of have to strafe a little bit to able to see that. But we found if you're strafing, you can actually see up fairly well as long as the bridge is longer. So it's been kind of a learning process, but I think honestly we're probably getting a better mapping of the entire bridge, and we have that documentation that's kept there instead of handwritten notes.
These are the large structure bridges, the ones spanning rivers, lakes, and canyons like you mentioned, right?
So yeah, these are mainly big canyons. So for instance, our Eagle Canyon Bridge, it's probably our tallest one in the state, and they actually have to have a rope that can reach the ground from their bucket. So that one's kind of a more difficult one to get, and we can just fly around it. Something else we have used it for too is where you're checking delamination on the bridges. So they'll drag a chain or hit it with a hammer to try and check for delaminations. But with the thermal that's on the SenseFly Albris, we are testing that out to see if we can see the different heat signatures on the deck. And It's a process to try and do it right as the sun comes up to see it, but we believe we actually can see some of that delamination. And the other thing we're using it for is actually to create a map. They go out there with a wheel and they're just painting the spots, and they were spending hours doing that. And I talked them into just letting me fly it real quick, and we can take it into Pix 4D, create a map, and it's got all their paint on it. It's mapped, it's accurate, and gets the guys out of the traffic. So that's another great use we found for them.
What's delamination?
Delamination is when the bridge starts separating, so the concrete on it starts coming up, and you don't always see it from the top, but down underneath in the underlying thing, it starts delaminating or coming away from the bridge deck.
It can produce a different heat signature?
It does, yeah, because they heat at different rates, so you can actually see the differences between them. And what they're doing is they're just hitting it with a hammer or a chain dragging across it, and it's kind of an art for that, to listen for the different sounds. So it's basically just not a uniform surface, and you get those pockets that come up and delaminate, and then that's typically where you start getting failures in the bridge deck or potholes in there.
And then you mentioned you use them for obtaining traffic counts?
We haven't been doing it for traffic counting per se yet. What we're looking at is kind of a bigger picture, looking at flows. So for instance, on one of our highways, we were just getting ready to turn on our ramp metering. So we were able to fly up in the sky and watch what happened right as we turned it on from a big perspective. And not only watch it, we could stream it live to other people that wanted to see it as well, which is a great asset. Also for public hearings, and we have another one of our interchanges that's the busiest in the state that we were flying that just to see how the patterns were going. And if it was basically the same simulation that we're seeing with our VizSim software was properly analyzed there. So with the drone, we could actually record it, see it, take it, and then have some dialogue with property owners around that area.
Using the drone, was that the first time you've been able to gather that kind of information? Or did you use helicopters or other monitoring methods before?
Usually not for that. We didn't do helicopters. For our project imagery, in the past we've done aerial photographs, but those were not nearly as detailed. So that's another use that we're using them for too, is for each of our projects, we'd fly those. And we'd get about 6-inch imagery. Sometimes it would be like a meter on there, but now we're getting inch resolution and for a lot cheaper.
Sounds pretty cool. Anything else?
Yeah, so accident reconstructions or accident surveying, that's one thing I did prior in my job. Was I did a lot of accident reconstructions, and a lot of times I'd actually have to go and survey it over again from what the highway patrol or the other public safety people would survey, but it wouldn't be good enough for me to actually recreate it. So what we can do now is we can fly these, you know exactly what's there and see it, you have a record of it, and then it's a lot easier to create that in 3D. But not only accident reconstructions, but say for instance we have an accident, we can get cars, find a route for them to get in and out for emergency vehicles too, from the air real fast, a lot faster than if we had to call a helicopter in, because they've got to get to the airport, get in the plane, get clearance, get out. Where if we've got a drone with us, we can just send it up in the air, look, see what it is, and get traffic cleared a lot quicker too, or get a vehicle in there.
Yeah, for sure. I could see where that would really help. Now, are there any other use cases before we move on?
Yeah, we're also looking at doing construction quantities. So trying to figure out quantities for payment for our earthwork. That's something we're going to be testing up here. We've used them to do our as-builts for construction projects. We've had some landslides assessments that we're using it for surveying. It's a lot safer to get one of those in there than what it is to get a guy on the ground sometimes in those landslide areas. And also we're looking at doing avalanche control as well, and seeing how well when we're letting these avalanches go, we're going to try and actually monitor it with drones as well, because it's not safe to have a guy there when you're firing a howitzer at the mountain, but we can have one of the drones up there in the area. Or not only just the avalanche control, but just to see our snowpack. Sometimes the roads are closed, we can't see how far back the snow goes, so we could fly in one of these drones and still have line of sight, but still see where the snowpack ends to help get roads open for the season.
Sounds like you guys have a lot of testing going on.
Yeah, we're trying to test it in about any area we can think of, and I know there's a lot of areas maybe we haven't even thought of or dreamed up yet, so we're trying to really get our use out of them and justify it, and I honestly believe we've really got a good return on investment for what we've paid for them.
Do you plan to produce a program evaluation report on the findings and results of using drones?
Yeah, we definitely do. we're always trying to track that and see what our return on investment is versus what it would cost us traditionally. And it's kind of that transparency thing for the public too, to justify, okay, we got these. Was it worth doing it? Is it worth saving money? And I think we've very well, I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but we've definitely saved a lot of money just on surveying or bridge inspections. Just those two areas, we've done quite a bit of savings.
What's your advice to other transportation departments that might be thinking about starting a drone program?
You know what? I'd honestly tell them probably to get their policies put together first. And then also, unfortunately, it seems like drones have a bad image in the public eye, and from all the people trying to fly them in fires or doing stupid things with them. So if they can get proactive and show the public and show other entities that these are actually a useful tool and it's something that can be a great asset for the department rather than the negative connotation, because everybody thinks, oh, you're spying on us or you're doing this or you're doing that. But that's not necessarily the case. And if you can get up front and let them see what you're actually doing with it and how much time you're saving and the safety factor, I think that's a huge goal for them.
Did you experience any public concerns when you started the program?
Honestly, we've been pretty good. So we've been trying to be proactive that way, and we haven't had any problems with the public so far. And I believe that's because we've been proactive.
Taking into account the benefits that you've already mentioned, what are the key selling points for keeping the drone program going or maybe expanding it?
Well, savings is a huge one, just the time savings. And then being able to do things that we could never do before is a huge area as well. And the safety factor. I mean, that's a big one. If I can save just one person's life, especially in surveying when you're close to traffic by using these. And right now we can't fly over anybody that's outside, but you can fly off to the side and get things done. But if I don't have to have a guy out there on the ground close to traffic and I can save a life, I think that's a huge value there as well.
Yeah, especially these days, people are just driving too fast or just not paying enough attention.
Yeah. And we've had people that have came to us, and we basically right now have to have an approval. So anything that's flown in our right-of-way comes through myself and then also goes to our deputy director for approval. So anything that's flown on a right-of-way has to have approval right now. And we've had some really odd cases. We had somebody that wanted to fly 30 feet above traffic, and it's like, oh, no. And I think that's what's helped with the public too, is we kind of try to field those things before they go out to make sure that we're not going to get things that are going to cause us problems later down the road.
So from an operational standpoint, when you use the drone, is there a specific process that you follow to fly a mission? Or is it like a hammer or other tool? You just pick it up and use it?
No. So what we have is we've got a website set up, and within that website, we've got our policy and procedures for them to read. And then we actually have a form that they fill out. And within that form, they'll basically have all the things in there of who they are, where they're going to fly. We also require their pilot license number to make sure that they are a commercial UAS pilot. And then we ask if it's in controlled airspace or not. And a lot of times if it is, I'll follow up with them. I'll give them a call. Or we've also got coordinators too that we put for each of our regions throughout the state and some other divisions that we're trying to get going as well. But we really try and look at those things and see what they're doing and then give them a call and find out what they're doing exactly. And then after they're done too, we actually have them submit all the imagery that they've captured and then give it to us, and we store that on our servers. So for one, we can see what they've been doing, and for the bigger reason is to actually have that. So we have documentation if we need it in the past. Oh, if I need a picture over here, or maybe they've created a map, then we've got that. In fact, when people are flying maps and they've created aerial imagery, we've got it set up in our GIS system. So we're putting all that imagery in there so people can go in there and actually use that imagery.
Now you're going to be speaking at this year's Commercial UAV Expo. Can you share with us what you're going to be talking about and why people might want to attend that session?
Sure. So basically what I'm going to be speaking on is how other transportation agencies, or I guess I shouldn't limit it to transportation agencies, but how you can get it started within your company and how to get it started within your organization of using UAS and drones. I go over a little bit of the rules to kind of stay safe within Part 107, because I assume most of them are all flying under 107 and they don't have a COA. And then I kind of want to showcase some of the areas where we've used those drones with great success and kind of show the plan that we continue to expand on their use in the future. So to really help people get started and maybe give them some ideas that they haven't thought about for what they're using them for, because I know it's kind of a new tool out there. And then the other key I want to get is that they don't always need to purchase the most expensive solution to start. Some of the ones that are cheaper and more affordable work just fine.
In terms of the technology itself, what are the key features that you have found to be the most valuable?
One of the key features is just how easy they are to fly today. I've been flying remote control aircraft for a long time, whether it be helicopters or other planes. And then when I first picked up one of these drones to fly, it was just amazing to me how simple they've made these to fly. And I think that was it too. With the capabilities too is to have good imagery and to purchase a drone that has a lot of the good autopilot features like the GPS, so it will stay in place. And if you get in trouble, the good return to home features and other areas. And it seems like the technology is moving further and further towards keeping more inexperienced people safe, which is nice because those are the ones that always hit the news.
Have you had to accommodate or build into your operations any maintenance requirements for the drones?
We haven't yet. We definitely need to. And honestly, so far, we've been pretty lucky. We're still in the infancy of it, of a year. We do have maintenance on the software and then also some of the more expensive drones that just come with the purchase of that. But we definitely need to get a budget put together for maintenance and to replace these and see what their life cycle is. Since they're so new, we're not exactly sure how long they last, what their durability is. But so far, we haven't had a single problem with any one of the ones we've had. They've been pretty good.
To your knowledge, are there any other Utah State departments using drones?
There is a few. So our Highway Patrol is definitely doing it. They've got a few guys that have them in their vehicles. And I just actually got a call not too long ago from our tax commission that's looking at using them for assessing properties. So other than that, our DWR, I believe, has toyed around with them a little bit. But other than that, it's still pretty new. I think we're still in the kind of the forefront of that.
How often does your team use the drones?
It depends. So typically I'd say probably weekly at least. Sometimes they're going all week long. Sometimes we'll have a little respite, but it's probably right in there about weekly, I'd say.
What have been some of the challenges of developing a program like this?
I'd say what our biggest challenge has been is getting pilots trained. And then some of the cost of the more expensive drones, like we'd like to get one with LiDAR on it and test out some of those capabilities. Flying within the Part 107 rules at times has been difficult too. So without getting another COA, and we're looking forward to seeing what's going to be changing in some of those rules. And I'd say that probably the hardest part for us is not flying over people. So we've been making sure that we don't, but it would be a lot easier, especially when you get into your cities where there are a lot of people and there's things we just aren't able to fly in some of those areas yet because of that.
And my final question, Paul, what message would you like to leave people on the use of drones by transportation agencies?
Sure, yeah, just say that they're an excellent tool for not only transportation agencies, but a lot of companies. They have a variety of uses. They're not an end-all solution. They need to be used with care, but moving forward, I think we could change that perception of drone use and help to improve productivity, safety, and then also deliver to help use the taxpayers' money a lot more wisely.
That's it for episode 125 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Paul Wheeler from the Utah State Transportation Department and learning how they're using drones. I want to thank Paul for taking the time to speak with me. If you want more information, check out the website at udot.utah.gov. That's udot.utah.gov. And remember, you can hear Paul talk about the use of drones at the 2017 Commercial UAV Expo on October 24th to the 26th in Las Vegas. If you like the Drone Radio Show, please consider supporting the podcast with a small donation. The content is always free, but for as little as $1 per month, you can help defray the cost of production. To donate, go to patreon.com/Drone Radio Show. Thanks for listening. Your support means a lot to me, and I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Goers.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.